welcome back everyone to the Modern Trumpeter Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Bueno, and in today's episode, we get to speak with one of the most recorded trumpet players in the film and TV industry. Today, we get to speak with Rick Baptist. As one of the most prolific trumpeters in Hollywood, Rick Baptist has played on over 1,300 motion pictures, 30 years on the Academy Awards, and 28 years on the Emmy Awards. He's performed on over 100 gold and platinum records, including Frank Sinatra's Duets 1 and 2, Barbra Streisand's Duets album, and Ray Charles' last record, Genius Loves Company. Baptist has played trumpet on over 5,000 cartoon shows from Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, and Family Guy. He's honored to be one of two musicians who played on the first 13 Pixar movies, including his feature as first trumpet on The Incredibles and the iconic solo tone mute solos on Up, which we get to hear more about that story here in the interview. And as a reminder, we have several different episodes out of the Modern Trumpeter podcast. So if you enjoyed this one, please check out some of our other interviews. If you are enjoying our content, then you'll love our main project, The Modern Trumpeter, A Guide to Building a Versatile and Successful Career. This project is a book that is around 450 pages of information and insights into building a career as a trumpet player. Inside, you'll find practical answers to questions many aspiring trumpet players ask. How do you get started in the industry? What's life like on a cruise ship? What songs should you know for wedding and cover bands? What is a union and should you join? What's the difference between premier and field bands in the military? Are there any books on how to play mariachi music? How do you find work as a solo artist, and which agencies book musicians like you? The list goes on and on. With insights and stories from over 75 professional trumpet players working in the music industry today, this book gives you the tools, mindset, and insider knowledge to turn your talent into a sustainable career. Insights, stories, and behind the scenes of the music industry are provided by the likes of Wayne Bergeron, Shew, Bria Skonberg, Bijon Watson, Michael Sachs, Bob Malone, Louis Dowdwell, Marcus Printup, Glen Marhevka, Dave Richards, Webb, Jerry Hay, Brian MacDonald, Kiku Collins, Lisa Whitaker, Vince DiMartino, Tony Cadlick, Willie Murillo, Amy McCabe, Randy Brecker, and many, many more. Visit us at moderntrumpeter.com to stay updated on the book release. You can also follow us on Instagram at Modern Trumpeter. Thanks so much, and now let's get to my interview with Rick Baptist. Hey everybody, welcome back again to the Modern Trumpeter Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and today we get to speak with our legendary trumpet player, Rick Baptist. Rick, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Jaden. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, I'm just excited to hear about your career and your stories, your insights to, before we hit record, you're talking about all kinds of themes with versatility and everything. I'm just excited to hear your perspective on what it takes to make a career playing the trumpet, hear about your career and advice for the youngins, the next generation. So
next generation, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So can you first tell us how you started out on the trumpet? What was your first experience, and at what point did you know you wanted to make a career playing the trumpet?
Okay, well, this is how I got started. I was born with asthma. Actually, I was born with symptoms, and then at 3 years old, they diagnosed me as being an asthmatic. And when I was in 5th grade, I was running around the track one day, and my left lung collapsed. And so they rushed me to the hospital. They were able to save half of my lung. And the doctor, Dr. Feldman, God bless Dr. Feldman, he suggested I take up a wind instrument to build up my lungs so I could have a quote normal life, right? And so when he brought that up, I had never thought, I love music. My folks were very musical and all that. My mom would play a little piano. My grandma used to tell me that my dad lost his mouthpiece like 5 times in a week, and then that was it. He never played again. So, but yeah, as far as for me, it was when the doctor said I needed to take up a wind instrument. Didn't say whatever. And it just so happened at that time on Sundays, Ed Sullivan show was on. And so Harry James was on Ed Sullivan. I thought, wow, trumpet, that would be pretty cool, And in 5th grade, you could go, they would have music class and you go pick an instrument. So I went and immediately ran to the trumpet and went when nothing came out, obviously. And so I went home and told my folks, I think the trumpet would be fun to play and it would obviously help my lungs. And so they I grew up in the Bay Area, Oakland, San Leandro area. They went to the San Lorenzo Music Center, and for 3 months they rented me a trumpet, and it came with four free lessons. And so they went and got it, presented it to me on my birthday, and I started to play. And once I started to play and got the sound out and was able to do that. And the teacher I had was a very good teacher, a gentleman named Juanito Silva. And he, at that time, again, I was 10 years old, and he started teaching me how to play. He had a piano, he would listen to tunes, he'd play songs. He was very conscious of letting me hear the notes and then trying to play the notes. So anyway, that's how that's how I got started on trumpet. And for some reason, and it came relatively easy to me. I started to play. I would practice. My mom would make me practice 2 hours a day. I was 10 years old. I wanted to go out and play ball, whatever. But I loved the trumpet. I wanted to practice. So she sat right next to me and made me practice for 2 hours a day. And it just kept going and getting better and getting better. And then one day, Mr. Silva, this is after about 8 months of lessons, he says, Rick, you're progressing so fast. There's a gentleman in Oakland. His name is Leo Demers. He's a very fine trumpet teacher. I want you to go see him. And my folks were behind me 100%. I would take a bus every week to Oakland from Hayward and San Lorenzo to take my lesson. And this guy was brilliant teacher up in the Bay Area at that time. And so he started me on the Arben's book, because I never played out in any of the trumpet books until I went to Mr. Demers. I did the Arben's, I did the St. Jacomb's, all those things. But the cool thing is that Mr. Silva, my first teacher, he had a kids band, and there was some young adults in it, and it was called the Latinaires, and it was a Latin band. I love Latin music. And he says, Rick, I think I want you to come and play in my band. Now, I was 12 years old at this time, just turned 12, and he was teaching me how to read. I could read. The other guys in the bands were all great. I loved Latin music. And so he said, but the thing you got to do is, all my musicians are all union musicians. So you're going to have to go to San Leandro, join Local 10, become, in order to play in this band, you have to be a member of the union. And so I did that, and that was 66 years ago, 1960, when I joined the Musicians Union. One of the smartest things I did. And then from there, I joined the San Francisco Local 6, because in town, like I said, I love playing. I didn't enjoy practicing that much, but I loved playing because I could sit with other musicians and other players and learn what they're doing. I was always asking questions and stuff like that. And so, yeah, joining the union, that was the smartest thing I did. It really was. And especially, we'll get into that much later on in the thing. But anyway, yeah, so I had to get special permission from the Federation, because I was just turned 12 years old, to join the union. And I did that and started playing, and I started working, and I took any jobs that was out there. I mean, if I got opportunity, I did Chinese funerals, I did Portuguese Holy Ghost parades, any kind. There was a municipal band in San Leandro. I went and I asked to join that, and played for the guy and joined that. Anything that I could play my horn. And then plus working with Mr. De Silva's, the band, started a fire in me, and I loved playing music. I loved entertaining people, and it was so cool. My mom, she would come to all the gigs. She'd stand in the back of the room, and I could see her back there. And if she plays something, and if she couldn't hear me, or she heard me, she'd give me this, she'd do so. I mean, there was just a lot of encouragement that I got from not only my family, but the teachers and my fellow players. I was just young and energetic, and I wanted to learn. And so that's the thing. My impetus back then was just to play and it was fun. You're entertaining people. You're doing something that other people don't know how to do, and they appreciate it. And so that was the thing. And there was so many great players at that time in San Francisco. In fact, a pretty good player you might have heard of, John Faddis. We grew up together in the Bay Area.
Wow.
We played in two rehearsal bands up there together, and John would always come in with his Dizzy Gillespie t-shirt on and a trumpet that he bent up the bell himself, right? You know,
Yeah.
he was always an amazing player. He could play jazz. I mean, he had great ears and ended up to be the John Faddis in New York.
Yeah.
So that was the cool thing. So that's really how it started and why, and it just every gig I did, I wanted to make sure that I learned from everybody around me and hear stories. Man, that's the greatest thing. You work with the older players. A lot of guys, oh, the old guy, he doesn't know. No, I loved working with the older players because they always had great stories.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Oh, I love it. That's so cool. So did you play in like your high school groups at
Oh
all
yeah.
or
Oh
yeah.
yeah. I was, like I said, in eighth grade, we had a music teacher, and I actually have a card from him, Mr. Acosta, and it said on the thing that I hope that Ricky, which is actually my legal name, Ricky, he said, I hope that Ricky continues playing the trumpet because I think he's a natural. And that's coming from my eighth grade, I was 11 years old. So then
Yeah.
when I got into high school, yeah, we had a great band in high school. The teacher was fantastic, Tom Phillips, and the choral director is a gentleman named Mr. Hart, Tom Hart, and found out that as I went along in high school, I would start doing works in San Francisco, a lot of jobs. He was a saxophone player, and I actually worked a lot of jobs with him. And this is the choral director, the other music guy, and I had to always call him. I always called him Mr. Hart. No, but when we were on the gig, it was Tom. No, Rick, I'm just like you. Call him. I'm Tom. But it was just yeah. I did the marching band, but I think the thing that really is important, Mr. Demers wanted me to be a legit trumpet player. He taught me all that. I have my original old thing that he would handwrite, say what I have to work on the Arvin's book.
Mm,
And he actually
wow.
started me on transposition, A trumpet, from day two. And he
Wow.
said, you're going to have to learn how to transpose if you're going to play in a symphony and all that. And so I went through Arvin's on A trumpet and then C trumpet and then D and E flat and E trumpet and then F and learned. He taught me all that kind of stuff. But the real turnaround for me was in my sophomore year in school, we started a dance band, a stage band.
Mm,
And what that did was, because I was always, I mean, again, I took lessons from the great trumpet player in the San Francisco Symphony. I won a thing that said I got eight free lessons with Vic Crest, who provides mouthpiece, the 4-star K4, that was for Vic Crest. Anyway,
mm,
so he was teaching me how to play, and I was learning fast, and met the other guys, Don Reinberg and Eddie Haug, and all the guys in the San Francisco Symphony. I would even sub on the rehearsals. And so I started playing that kind of stuff. I had my first horn that my folks rented me was a Busher trumpet, which came with a Parduba double cup mouthpiece number 5, which I later found out that was one of the mouthpieces that Harry James used to play on. And so I stayed on that. But Mr. Demers, he got me on a binge. And
mm.
so I got a binge 5X and a Bach 3C mouthpiece. So again, I'm playing in the San Francisco Symphony subbing as a 15-year-old kid. I
Yeah.
was in the Oakland Symphony, playing with the great first trumpet player, and I just started doing all that. But then when I got the stage band, I started to listen to all the big bands. I mean, Woody Herman's. I love Woody Herman's. All his heard, all his sing. Maynard Ferguson, of course. Buddy
Mm,
Rich, of course.
yeah.
And it so kind of expanded my idea of playing and how to play. Okay,
Wow.
I'll take a rest. Your turn.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool. So like just from the get-go, like all those experiences and the transposition and playing in the symphonies and the show band, like right away you were getting into that versatility that we were kind of
Exactly. Absolutely.
and
I
that
used to
and
love
of
playing
course,
mariachi stuff. I mean, that was so much fun playing that style, and
yeah.
listening to those guys play. They were fantastic. Anyway, go on.
Oh, yeah, yeah. My dad used to play in some mariachi bands. He was a band director for a
Oh,
little
cool.
while, trumpet player, and then after a few years, family situations changed, and he decided to become a banker. And so,
Oh,
totally different. But
yeah,
he's like the
true.
one that but he's I credit him to a lot of me getting going on trumpet. He was the first one to show me Maynard Ferguson, and that was
Good.
the what really started the fire for me. Was like, wait, a trumpet can do that? Like
Yeah.
that's not possible. Like, and just and all of that stuff. And so he started me on that and would give me tips on my tone and always be taking me to concerts and stuff. So and when I was younger, when he was doing the mariachi stuff, I remember going with him to different restaurants or different performances, and they eventually got me a little mariachi uniform, and I would
That's
dance
cool.
around, and they'd get extra tips for that. So the
That's
band was always
cool.
happy when I came, but I've always just from early on been able to see a lot of different types of music.
Right.
So for you, after all this experience and whatnot, did you end up studying at a university and going that route?
No. So like I said, I started to play a lot. I was 15 years old, and one of the big things that happened that I thought was cool, and my mom, God bless her, she was alive then, but was they had auditions. There was American Airlines started a thing called American Youth Performs, and it was going to be a concert at Carnegie Hall. And so they took one kid from all 50 states. I auditioned, and I won for California. And so in 1965, I did a concert with this big orchestra for President Johnson, American Youth Perform at Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, this is really cool. I met a lot of great players from all around the country, and again, I was doing that quite a bit, and I really loved that. That was cool to say that, hey, I played at Carnegie Hall, 15 years old, playing with all these great musicians from around the country. And so I came back to San Francisco and again started working quite a bit in the Bay Area. My teacher, he would Mr. Demers, he would do he every year he would work on the ice follies, and so he got me on that. He used to do the circus, so he got me on the circus, and I would play that. And I just met all these other great players. There was a lot of great players up in the Bay Area, and so I was in the original Raider band, played in the San Francisco 49er band
Oh
with all
man.
these great players, and they kind of took me under their wing, and I'm thinking, okay, I mean, I did okay in school, but my teachers, because I would always work on Saturday night and Friday night and whatever, and my one teacher in sixth grade, she wrote a note to my mom. I think that Rick's outside stuff needs to slow down because he's not it's not helping him in school. He sleeps once in a while, And so my mom says, screw that, I mean, this is what she loves doing. So I got a scholarship to San Francisco State, and I got a scholarship to Cal State Hayward, where Marv Nelson, who was the principal trumpet player in the Oakland Symphony, who I had been playing with, he talked me in to go up there. So I actually went to college for a total of about 5 months, and I knew that that was not what I really wanted to do. But I would play in that band. I'd play in the San Francisco State band. They would have me in there, just let me come in and play with the band. And so, yeah, with the college education, I didn't. That's not what I wanted to do. And so, I was working a club in San Francisco called Mr. D's, and Bobby Darin came in, and this is 1968, and Bobby Darin came in and was there for 3 nights, and he really loved my first trumpet playing, and his conductor, Bob Rosario, who I ended up working with many, many years later, they said, listen, he's going to be going to Harris, Reno for 2 weeks, And he says, I want you to come as my first trumpet player. And I says, oh, wow, that'd be great. But I'm only 20 years old. And Bobby says, that's okay to lie about your age. So I did that and went up there and played at Harris Reno for the 2 weeks and just had a ball. It was amazing. The guy playing second trumpet was the great George Graham, who I ended up working with a
Wow.
lot in Vegas and in LA. And, and so it was just a really good thing. And that was the start of me deciding that, okay, I've done everything I wanted to do in the Bay Area. And now, next thing I want to do is, and every year we would sit and watch the Oscars with my folks. And I thought, Mom, one day I want to play the Oscars. Well, in
Wow.
order to do that, you're going to have to, go to Vegas. You're going to have to, go to LA. And so I knew that I had to keep growing as a player. So I'm at Harris Reno. I stayed up there for a little under 2 years, working all these. The first act I worked, it was March of 1969, was Sammy Davis Jr. and opening act was Carmen McRae. And I thought, wow, that was fantastic. Well, that year in December, Bill Cosby came in and his opening act was Dizzy Gillespie.
Wow.
Wow, this is unbelievable. So Dizzy, he was there for 2 weeks as the opening act. George was there with me. And Dizzy, at the end, I had a chance to talk with him, pick his brain, and
Yeah.
just, he was amazing. So at the end of the gig, he says, guys, he said, I want you got to come up and see that room they gave me, in the hotel, this big suite. And so he invited George and I up there.
Wow.
And now Dizzy was a Baha'i, so was George Graham. And so we get up there, and Dizzy sits across from her, and he says, if you guys don't mind, and he lights a joint. Now, don't forget, I have asthma, right?
Yeah.
And so George says, oh, wait a minute. Bahala or whoever they say we're not supposed to do that, And Dizzy says, no, nobody's going to tell me not to smoke my stuff. So anyway, he's smoking it, and he looks at me, and he says, would you like to have a hit? And I'm thinking, if this is coming from Dizzy Gillespie, his lips were on this little thing, right? I have to take a hit, right? And so I went and coughed for about 40 minutes. Dizzy laughed his ass off. And I realized, okay, this is not going to be for me, right?
Yeah.
I've also was very conscious of watching other musicians. Again, everybody likes to party and a lot of drinking. For me, I never liked the taste of alcohol. My dad, when we were a kid, he'd give us a sip of beer, right? And, horrible. And so I never drank. I didn't do the drugs or anything like that. And just because I saw what, guys who got drunk and were playing and they played and they thought they sounded great, but they really didn't. And so I thought, well, I don't need a crutch like that. And so I was always the designated driver. But I never got into doing the drugs, doing the booze and things like that. It didn't enhance myself as a player or my playing. And so I'm not a prude, but I just make sure I tell when I go out and speak to young kids and all that, I tell them it's not, that's not going to benefit you in any way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I agree. I haven't not done any of that stuff, but I've had friends who I've seen them do that stuff, and they
no.
just,
When you look at the
oh
list
man.
of all the guys who used to do that, they committed suicide, whatever, you're not happy. And I always was happy when I played. So anyway, I was in Reno for 2 years, and then the band leader left, and he moved to Las Vegas. Now I knew that I had to grow as a player, and so when he went to Vegas, I went with him, and he started. It was started. It was at the Thunderbird Hotel. It was a thing that he started called Latin Fire, and so we played there, and I started to hear these other amazing trumpet players, all instruments, but especially trumpet players in Los Angeles at that time. Great. I mean, in Vegas at that time. So in 1971, I moved to Las Vegas, started working there, and then they in Las Vegas at the time they had 10 hotels that had full orchestras to back up the acts. Right, 3 trumpets, 3 trombones. Actually 4 trumpets, 4 trombones, saxes, strings, and everything. but you could they would work 6 days a week, 8 o'clock at night, one show, and midnight, the second show. They would do that for 6 nights a week, but the acts had to work 7 nights. So there was a two relief bands. We would go in on the seventh night. I was with one, and the great Charlie Turner, who played with Sinatra, he was on the other one, and I actually replaced Walt Johnson, another fantastic trumpet player, Walt. And so I replaced Walt as the first trumpet player on the relief band. So I would work 6 different hotels every week. I had a chance to play all the greatest acts in the world at all these, but the thing that I kept growing as a player. I would do some things in town, and but I had a chance to meet Nelson Riddle, had a chance to meet Don Costa, who came in with somebody else, had a chance to meet Peter Matz. And these were all guys who were big time in LA.
Yeah.
So I knew that when I was ready to finally leave Vegas, I knew I could call those guys. They knew my name already. I worked with all those times in LA. And so there was, as I told you when you said you lived up in Provo in Utah, in 1978, the Osmonds came into the Hilton Hotel and they loved my trumpet playing. And so they had just moved their TV show up to Provo, actually Orem, and they invited me to come up there and play the TV show. Now, what I didn't know in hindsight was when they did the show in Los Angeles, their trumpet players were the great Jerry Hay and Gary Grant. And so I went up to Vegas, up to Provo, and Bob Rosario, who was with Bobby Darin, he was their conductor, so he knew me. I would fly up a red-eye flight on Tuesday night. We would record Wednesday morning, then I'd fly back to Vegas and play my show in Vegas. And so I had a chance to do that TV show for about a year and a couple months. And it was funny because when I finally ended up moving to LA, I called Peter Matz, who was doing the Carol Burnett show, the band leader, and his contractor, Joe Saldo. And I called Peter. I said, because they all told me, when you come to LA, give me a call. So I did that. And it's a hard thing to do, make phone calls. It's very hard to do. And so anyway, I call him, hey, Mr. Matt. No, Peter, okay. Yeah, Peter, it's Rick Baptist from, oh yeah, how you doing that? I said, sir, I finally moved here, joined the union here. And he said, okay, I'm going to have my contractor call you. And Joe Saldo called me like 3 days later. And one of his trumpet players, Jack Laubach, had to have an operation. And so Peter says, he wants you to come and do the Cal Burnett show. So I immediately started working. I called Nelson Riddle. He was just about to start his album with Linda Ronstadt. He got me on that. And so I started working as soon as I came to town, thanks to my working in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
Okay.
That's that's so many questions.
Oh, yeah.
This is great. I love it. So with that, kind of going back a little bit in conversation with college, you didn't, you went for like maybe it sounds like a semester, and then we're like,
that was it.
The other opportunities, which is great. Some players college works and they go through the whole program and everything. Some don't go. Would you say that have things changed? Would it be better for young players to go to college, or is it still kind of a personal decision? Kind of just your thoughts on that for
Well, again,
players.
if you do go to college and get that degree, you're going to be able to use that in whatever you're going to want to do after college. You will have worked with these great young players, teachers, learned a lot about the music. But if that's all goes into your bag of things that you experiences and all that, I think that it's great because you're playing and constantly working with and playing with fellow musicians, sitting and playing duets, sitting and working with other players. The relationships you make in college will be with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And you never know where they're going to go, where you're going to go. Your paths will cross. And the more people that you meet as a player and then whatever, you can eventually count on that to get you to work later on down the road,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and
I do not discourage anybody from furthering their educational career as well as your musical career, because all the relationships you make eventually it's going to pay off in other jobs. And yeah, that's something that I think everybody should do if they feel like they're going to do it. Again, it wasn't that I wasn't smart enough to not do it. I just had so many, luckily, opportunities that opened up for me. So I didn't finish and I regret that. I do, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because you can look at your career. We're going to get to the other parts of it and say like, well, you didn't need it, like you were great and stuff. So why do you say you regret not finishing your degree in college and stuff?
Well, I think because it's something that, even though it's just a piece of paper, so they say, it adds a little bit of gravitas to you as a person. Wow. My daughter right now, she's getting masters in psychology. I'll probably be her first patient. But, but I mean, I think that's great that, that to further your career, and you never know what's going to be in store for you.
Yeah.
And, that's why we had mentioned versatility, when we were doing the pre-talk, that how being versatile is very, very important. And this is part of all the versatility that you need to have.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because there's been some people some people I've interviewed who also haven't finished, and some who have a doctorate. There's a wide range.
Yeah.
I was speaking with our most recent podcast episode was with Tony Cadlick
Oh, I
in
love
New
Tony.
York.
Great player.
Great player, great guy. And like he was
Absolutely.
telling me that he got his he got a bachelor's from I think it was Manhattan School of Music, and he's done, I mean, everything.
Oh, yeah.
But he can only teach adjunct right now at a university. They won't accept him because as a tenure track professor, because even though he has the experience, he doesn't have the master's that's required. And so he's like,
Ridiculous.
yeah,
He's got a doctorate in playing.
exactly, yeah. And so that's kind of like in my mind as I've been talking with so many players and hearing that from him, it's like, well, because you never know what's going to happen, especially, when you're like after so long, you get to your 60s, 70s. What if you're wanting to get something a little bit more stable and whatnot? Like, if you don't have that, like that's super tough. And
Yeah,
so
it is. You're right. You're right.
it's kind of, and I guess that's really specific to like the world of academia. But if that's going to be in the plan at all, it almost seems like, yeah, you have to get 2 degrees in order to be relevant in that area.
Right.
If not a doctorate, because now that there's so many players who have doctorates. I have a friend who is moving to Utah. His name is Joe Palmer. He played here at BYU and then went to Eastman for his master's and then just graduated from Miami with a doctorate. So he's gone out. He's just phenomenal player, composer, player, and everything, but can't find a job. So he's moving back to Utah and taking some adjunct spots and just trying to figure things out. And it's like, man, that's crazy. So even academia can be a little tricky, it seems.
It's You're right. Yeah.
And so anyway, so moving along kind of with what we were talking about, it sounds so, I had this thought as you were talking about, you moved here and you moved this place and you're meeting people and getting experience and wanted to play with players who were better. And that was kind of, you could say, like your real world experience equivalent of advancing in a degree is just playing with other people and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know. So one of the sections of the book is, where should you live as a trumpet player? Like where do you need to go? And I think, there's a lot of different answers to that. And ultimately for you, you ended up in LA, and kind of graduated a little bit more from the Bay Area to Reno and then to Vegas and then to LA. And so like slowly leveling up. And so through that process, when did you know it was time to move, and at what, like, yeah, I guess that simply, like, when did you know it was time to move and upgrade to the next city?
Well, I think, again, like I said, I was in Vegas for 8 years, I guess, and I knew I wanted to do bigger and better things. And just talking with, in 1975, Robert Goulet was at the Sands Hotel. He brought Doc Severson as an opening act. And so I'm on the relief band, right?
Yeah.
I'm on the relief band. So I go in. the cool thing was Doc brought Snooky Young to be his first trumpet player on his part of the show. He also brought, Ed Shaughnessy, the drummer from the Tonight Show. Now, of course, I always loved Snooky's playing with Basie and Fletcher Henderson. I mean, Snooky, and he ended up to be a lifelong friend, and I loved him dearly. But, and worked tons of jobs with him. And I would play duets every day with Doc.
Wow.
Because during the day, you only work 8 o'clock at night and midnight. That's it. So the whole thing goes turned around. We had a softball league that started at 3 o'clock in the morning with dealers and blackjack dealers and pit bosses and musicians. And as soon as the sun came up, game was over with. That was it. So your whole life kind of changed. We would have dinner in between shows. 10 o'clock at night is when you had dinner. So your whole life changed. So Doc, who just is amazing, always has been, I think he just turned 99. God bless him. Anyway, I would go every day and sit and would play an hour and a half of duets with Docs because he just loved playing, and I loved picking his brain and asking questions and what I should do and that's the cool thing. So anyway, yeah, it's at that time, the way he was talking about it, he had just gotten the Tonight Shows, he's talk about John Odino, who, my God, what a great first trumpet player, and all his other guys, and Conti Condoli, and all the great band that Tonight Show band is and was. And so I thought, okay, it's 1979. Vegas started to change a little bit. There was a strike. It started to change a little bit. So I have a family, and and at that time I had my son. And so I decided, I think it's now time. And like I said, when I came to town, I called Peter, I called Nelson, and I started to work a little bit. But that was the impetus, was to get to town and start doing these other things that I dreamt of doing. And so I called Doc, and he actually used me. I would be able to sub for Audino or for Snooks or whoever I did that. When I first. And so I was just starting to get busy. And the thing is that I tell these younger guys when I go and speak to young musicians, which I love doing, I love telling them what they need to do, which is what I know we're going to get into in this podcast, is what they need to do to get work.
Yeah.
Main thing is that I don't know if I want to go there now, but anyway, we'll talk about that. But yeah, so I knew that at that time it was time. So I went to the leader. I said, "Hey, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to Vegas." They were all supported. Everybody was so supportive of me. But it was a big deal because at that time I was making a lot of money in Vegas.
Yeah.
Playing, and had a family. So we moved here and bought a house and went on from there. So yeah, it was a big decision, but it was a decision I knew I had to make. I was sitting at home watching the Tonight Show and watching the Oscars and all these different TV shows, and and I said, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do.
So when you were making that decision, did you, and big decision and could be scary of, like you're comfortable. You could say you were comfortable in Vegas.
Well, definitely.
Yeah. And but the things you wanted to do, which I'm sure made it a little bit easier, and you'd already made connections and stuff. Were you set up did you have like some money saved up financially? So where it's like a bit of a cushion, or was it kind of just, we're just going for it and hoping that it works out?
No, I mean, yeah, you had some. It was never enough,
Sure.
but yeah, you had some. And I think the thing that really, when I came to town, meeting the other amazing players here, everybody was so encouraging because, I was one of the youngest guys, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the way your career is. You work somewhere, you're the youngest, and then you're one of the oldest. There's nothing in between.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was the youngest guy. I always knew that you have to be respectful to the other players.
Yeah.
You have to be somebody, if they want to be, I didn't party. I didn't do the drugs and drink and all that. So, but they understood that, that was my choice. They understood that. And so I just got along with everybody. And I found that the way you get work, and this is not only in Los Angeles, but anywhere, you're going to get work from the other players who enjoy working with you. You know,
Yeah.
I tell these young guys when I go, I says, what you do is you got to check your ego at the door because no one likes working with somebody who thinks they play great and they're high and mighty. You know, you're not going to get if the trumpet players, if they hear of a one, you know, you never know if you're going to be the first trumpet player, but you always, if you go on a job, you be the best second trumpet player, the best third trumpet player, the best fourth trumpet player to the lead player. You follow him, you hang with the guys, you want to make yourself one of the guys to you play great always.
Yeah.
You have to get along with everybody. And
Yeah.
not to say that you got to kiss their butt. No, you have to get along with them. And it has to be sincere. It
Yeah.
can't be, hi, how's every, no, then, that's phony. But
Yeah.
you're going to get more work from fellow players. And not only trumpet players, trombone, saxophone, everything, That's how you're going to get your name spread around.
Yeah. And the more pretty much everybody I talk to, it's all, and I've experienced this myself, but it's like the relationships that you have with people, and
Absolutely.
that's everything kind of hinges on that. And it's like chapter 3 in my book is right away, like relationships. Like
Perfect.
that's what it is. I can recall there's a trumpet player in town who great guys, a handful of years older than I am, and just he was one of the top call lead commercial jazz guys. And so he first heard me at like a jam session where we're
Okay.
playing Strasbourg Saint Denis or something, and go for a high note, and he's like, "Oh, okay, this kid can play a little bit." That was about all I could do, but he saw some potential, and then would have me come and sub on a gig or something, or play in the section, and
Yeah, exactly.
later on, then he was like, "Hey, I referred you for this gig," and then that person would boom, and then, "Hey, there's this Latin theme that I was asked to, but I can't do it. Can you do that?" And then meeting players there, and then I met somebody else from this other group, and it just all started like connecting. And I was like, looking back, I'm like, wow, yeah, it's like kind of that guy was his name's Osty Robinson, fantastic trumpet player, and he's kind of the one who was like, yeah, I'll put you on my list. Like I'm going to call you, I'm going to send work your way, and from
Yeah,
there, yeah,
exactly. And that's when I came to Los Angeles. I told you Peter Match put me on Carol Burnett. The first trumpet player on Carol Burnett was the great Warren Looney, right?
yeah,
We ended up being great friends. Warren got me on so many jobs, recommended me because
hmm
we got along and everything. But
yeah,
yeah, it's the recommendation things. That's how you get your name out there. And yeah, you have to be able to get along with people.
yeah.
You have to. You got to be able to get along with your fellow musicians.
Yeah, exactly. And there's the what several people have termed like the hang. There's the hang and the
Yeah.
gig, and like the hang is almost as important, or if not more important than the gig, because of the people, and
Right. Well, I tell
meeting.
I tell this story to the when I go around at the different colleges, and the story is in the studios. I probably worked with the 1,300 movies that I did. I think maybe 1,000 of them were with Malcolm McNabb, brilliant first trumpet player in Los
Yeah.
Angeles. Warren Looney,
hmm
the best all-around trumpet player. John Lewis. It was
hmm
like us four were the ones that on motion pictures, that was who the contractor called because we worked together great. And the cool thing about it is, again, the ego thing. Malcolm could play anything. But if the composer wrote it was a big band chart, boom, it was on my chair. I'd play it, right? He could
Yeah.
play it if I wasn't there, but
Yeah.
we would pass part. I always pass parts to players because number one, it's kind of boring to just play all fourth trumpet, all third trumpet. And I do
Yeah.
this on the Oscars, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But anyway, so I did probably 1,000 movies with that trumpet section with
Wow.
all the composers, and we did. And I tell the people that at lunch, because the sessions it's a double session, so 10 to 1, 2 to 5, you have lunch, right? the trumpet section always went to lunch together and we ate together on every job.
Wow.
And this one kid says, well, why did you do that? I says, well, because if you don't go to lunch with the other guys, you're the one we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is with musicians, you know.
Yeah.
So and so is not here. Okay, let's get him, you know. But anyway, yeah, the hang is the best part. Be with the other players, but just to be able to work and enjoy and appreciate all these, you know, your fellow musicians.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 100% because I think there's been times where I'm like, oh, I've got to go practice or I got to work on homework or something
Right.
after sound check and before the show. And it's like,
Right.
when I was young, and now I'm like, no, that like this is the time to connect with people because if you're not really connecting well, then well,
Right.
maybe we'll ask somebody else to come on the next gig.
Yeah,
And so
that's true, you know.
yeah, and there's a handful of bands where they don't regularly have trumpet, but when they do, I'm usually the first call, and because of I just get along with everybody, and I try and make
Right.
an effort when I'm there.
Right.
Stuff. Okay, so you're in LA, you're doing all this stuff. It seems like, and I'd love to get your perspective on this. From what I've heard, it sounds like there's less and less recordings happening in general, less session work, less here, maybe more in Europe. I just wanted to hear your thoughts kind of in that regard. If somebody's listening to this and they're like, "Hey, that's what I want to do. I want to do films and movies and everything. Like, how do I do it? Is it still going to be a viable option in the next decade or two? What do you think?"
Okay, my feeling on that, and this is, you know, in 1980, I was here, and we had a strike. You know, you couldn't do a movie, you couldn't do a TV show. There was a strike, a union strike, and everything slowed down. And in a way, that really hurt it because that's when people started to take projects because hey, they've got to get these TV shows done, these movies done, and they went to Seattle. And Seattle at a time was doing a lot of motion pictures because they couldn't do it in LA. And then Nashville was the same thing. A lot of stuff was going to Nashville. And so there was a lull there for a while in the 80s. But you could do live TV. So at that time I was doing the Cal Burnett show. I was doing the Barbara Mandrell show, live TV. Marie Osmond had a live TV show. You know, so Warren and I and a few of the other guys, we continued to work during the strike, which was legal to do, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I can't say it's not the heyday right now, the way it used to be in town, but there's still a lot of things going on. You know, that's the thing about I love about the town. It was that, you know, everybody wanted to do movies. That was always the thing that you did. But at one point, I did 8 TV shows a week.
Yeah.
I didn't do when I you know the fit you know I got started to work on motion pictures, but in TV, man, there was a lot of work for the guys, and I was starting to do a lot of it, you know. But actually, the 5th movie I did when I came to town was E.T., and I got on that. I got on that because of Warren Looney, you know. And so, yeah, again, they're always gonna need people to do music. In this town, you have the LA Phil, which is brilliant, you know, and you have other, you know, the Orange County. I mean, it's a huge place. There is gonna be some type of music for you to play anywhere you're at. Hence goes back to being versatile, right? And so I think what I tell the younger guys now, yeah, it's not closed up for new people. It's not at all, but it is definitely slower than what it was. But there's still a lot of guys working. There's still a lot of stuff that they're doing. There's records, there's television, there's commercial jingles, you know, there's all sorts of things. You could play in church. There's always places to play. There's always places, you know, that you'll be able to make some money. And you just have to be able to do all the stuff that comes your way and take care of
Yeah.
biz. It's a shame, but now with AI, they're saying, "Oh, that's going to take over." I disagree. I think that they can't. Hey, listen, I remember when synthesizers were doing, taking playing the all the parts for movies. There was,
Yeah.
and so, but yet it always came back to that they for motion pictures and some TV shows, they love the sound of real music.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's been a change, and like it sounds like this kind of it goes up and down in
Yeah, that's
general.
it.
It's still doing that.
It absolutely does. And if you have a degree, you could go and teach when you're not working.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
there's that other thing that we talked about in the beginning, where then yeah, you could go in and teach high school, whatever, or
Yeah.
private lessons. So again, what I like telling the younger musicians is they come to town and immediately want to start working. So how do I do that? Well, this is what I tell them, and hopefully everybody out there is going to pay attention to this. No matter what you want to do, like I said, growing up, I wanted to do the Oscars. I ended up doing 30 of them as first trumpet, right? I ended up doing that. So that was good, but that was my dream come true there. But there's also cartoons that's going on. So what I
Mhm.
tell the younger musicians is, I tell the kids when they come into town, if you have an idea of what you want to do, so what you find out on your instrument, you find out who the number one player is in town of what you want to do.
Yeah.
Movies, records, whatever. You find out who that is. You call the musicians union, you get their phone number, and you
Mhm.
call them and ask them for a lesson.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jaden, and I just moved to town. I'm a trumpet player. I've always loved your playing. I was wondering if maybe I could get a lesson. And most guys teach. And
Yeah.
so that lesson might cost you $100. So you go over there and you play for the number one guy in town who's working all the time, and you play. Now, in that lesson, two things will happen. One, he's going to hear how well you play.
Yeah.
Number two is he's going to see what your personality is like. Are you going to fit in with the other guys? And
Yeah.
so, and the teachers always, the professors always get mad at me when I tell the kids, don't bother sending a resume. Because you could lie, you could say whatever you want on a resume. And they said a lot of the teachers back then is, yeah, send your resume to whoever you want to hire you. Well, there was a great trumpet player in town, Stu, and he was a contractor at the Schubert Theater, Broadway shows.
Mhm.
And he would get resumes on every instrument. He was the number
Yeah.
one guy. If you worked with him, you would be working a lot. So he got resumes all the time. You know what he did when he got a resume? He would line the bottom of his bird cage with it. So I tell the kids, don't send resumes, and the teachers get mad at me. But what you do, so you go and you play, and because if that teacher, after two or three lessons, if he realizes this guy can really play, he calls the contractor and say, "Hey, there's a new young guy in town. You have to call this guy." Then you'll get a call from the contractor, all right?
Mm.
Because it came from her top player, so it must be a great player, right? So
Yeah.
then you get this call from Dateline, right? And
Mhm.
so we got your name, and the contractor wants you to do this movie. It's at MGM Studios. It's on Wednesday. It's 10 o'clock double, which is 10 to 1, 2 to 5. Can you make it? Well, yeah, I'll be there. Okay, good. Now, I tell the young kids, all right, so this is the other no that you should never do. And this is in life for
Okay.
anything you do. And that is if the call is at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, now you're in Los Angeles, a lot of cars, right? A lot of
Yeah.
traffic. So, what time do you show up at the studio for that 10 o'clock call?
I would say 9 o'clock at the latest.
Very good. A lot of times I get answers like maybe 20 minutes ahead of time. I says, oh, interesting. So now, have you ever worked at MGM Studio? No. Do you know where the musicians park at MGM? No. Do you know where the studio is at MGM? No. For the music, I says, so you get there a minimum of an hour early. And what you do, you finally get there an hour early. sit in the parking lot, wait for the other musicians to park, take their cases out, and walk to the studio and follow them to the studio, right? But that's how you know where the studio is. All right. The other number two
Yeah.
is you get there an hour early, and they always have the donuts and coffee table over there, and stand around the donuts and coffee and say, I'm so excited. This is my first job. Oh, yeah, I remember my first job is this. And you start to make a connection to the rest of the musicians that are there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then at about 20 minutes before downbeat, everybody puts the coffee down. You go and you follow the other players, and you go to the empty seat in the trumpet section, which will probably be the fourth chair, and you sit there. And that's the first time all the musicians get a chance to look at the music. We've never, in the studio, you never see music ahead of time. Ever.
Amazing.
It's like that's when you sit down and you open the book, and that's when you're going to see what you're going to need. Now, with the trumpets, I always carried 5 horns, 5.
Wow.
Carried a B flat, a C, flugel, piccolo, and I have a cornet in the car. All right. And we always got, because you never know what, they don't tell you, oh, it's going to be on C trumpet. They don't tell you it's going to be on flugel. They don't tell you it's a piccolo trumpet. You have the horn there. Now, if you play the horn and it's in the music, that's more money. 50% more of the salary that you make, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have those other horns. And that's the same thing with woodwind players. You know, if you're the clarinet player, you make sure you have your bass clarinet, and all the other flute players, make sure you have pick and alto and flute. Always bring more than you need, because you don't know what you're going to have to play.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm sure the same is with mutes, right?
Oh, yeah. I have a huge mute bag. Yes, you always bring that's part of what you do. You have a cart with the horns on it and my mute bag, and that's it. Yeah.
Wow. And so mutes, horn, do you ever find that you bring like multiple mouthpieces just
No.
depending on what you're going to play? You always play the same?
No, I knew that my piccolo, I had my Bob Reeves, I mean, you have a flugel mouthpiece, and you have pick mouthpiece and cornet mouthpiece and your regular mouthpiece. But I was never one to change mouthpieces. In 1970, I was in Vegas, and I was playing that 3C with my Binge on Latin Fire, and it was killing me. So I heard about Bob Reeves, came to Los Angeles. I had my Bach 3C mouthpiece, and I said, Bob, I'm Rick Baptist. I live in Las Vegas, and I want something I need a little more cushion on the rim. So he made me that. I didn't know anything about backbores, any of that stuff. I was very naive because I never changed mouthpieces. I've had 3 make horns. I had my Busher, my Benge, and then in 1965, I traded my Benge to another trumpet player who had a Shilke B5, and that's what I played for the rest of my career. So I never really changed. I didn't believe in changing mouthpieces. I could change backbores. Wayne and I used the number 5 backbore, Warburton backbore, and Wayne would use a 5-star. So, I mean, that sometimes made it easier, yeah, but not enough to, the first time I played with Lou Soloff, and the story, I always heard these stories about Lou, he would show up with a case with 3 B-flat trumpets and another case full of mouthpieces. And so I got called. Mercer Ellington was going to do an album in New York, and I played with Mercer, and he liked my playing, and so he says, Rick, I want you to come back and play first trumpet on this record in New York. And it was a thrill because I got there, and the second trumpet player was my buddy, John Faddis. Third trumpet player, the guy sitting on the third book, was Lou Soloff. So I'm thrilled to work with these 2 guys in New York and so I sit down and introduce, and obviously John remembered me, and because I had not seen him before that, in years, and we just got together, and Lou says, you play Shilke? Great. Okay, cool. And John had his Shilke. So Lou opened the case and he pulled out a Shoki, right? And so I played the first tune, passed the second two to John, and the third tune I gave it to Lou. And John taps me on the leg and says, "Watch this." So I gave the third. It was a three-page cue, and watched Lou, and he put the Shoki back in the case and took another horn out. So he's got two B flat trumpets in front of him. I forget what it was. Probably a Bach. I don't remember. And then he set up a tray underneath the stand and he put 10 different mouthpieces on this tray. Then he got a red pen and I looked at him and he's looking at the music and he's going, he makes a little mark here, going down, another mark here, a little mark over here, a little mark over here, a little mark over here. And so we start rehearsing the thing and he's looking and he takes this horn and this mouthpiece, put it here. And then when that was done, take this mouthpiece. He sounded unbelievable on everything, but he was so nuts thinking that he had to have all these different things. And trust me, it'll drive you nuts. It really will. Because Lou sounded amazing on everything and it worked out. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's my Lou Smolov story.
I would have loved to see that. That
was amazing. It really was.
Oh, I love it. And so moving to, when you started working with Dancing with the Stars and whatnot. And so tell us about how that came about and how did you see the kind of the evolution of the show and when you're playing in those situations, live TV, what do you need to know? Like, are you using in-ears or playing to the mic? And kind of just like, what's the behind the scenes of playing those live situations?
Coming to town in 1979, started working. I did Rocky 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I played all those with Bill Conti. By playing with Bill Conti, I was able to get on the Oscars. He was the leader for 19 years on the Oscars. I always had a great trumpet section. Even though I was the, quote, first trumpet player, I had Warren Ludian, I had George Graham, I had all these great players. When George passed away, I was able to get Wayne Bergeron on the job. Always had great players. And so with the Oscars, again, when you play live to 1 billion people.
Yeah.
And so, we go in and we start rehearsals. We start rehearsals on Sunday, and you rehearse Sunday, all the music, Monday all day, Tuesday all day. Wednesday, that's when you go to the venue and you get in the pit. You do 2 hours of sound check, and then you're off until Friday night when they do a full run through. Saturday night, full run through. Sunday morning for a little bit, and then it's live to the world on Sunday. And so live, I always love playing live. I love playing the concerts, live concerts. I was in the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra. I did all those, I used to sub in the LA Phil. I love playing live. There's something to live playing that just gets the juices going in me, and it makes me want to be a better player, I always strove to play the best I could, Concentration is utmost. You always have to be concentrating on playing, listening, and reading, the music. So there was all the movies, there's TV shows, TV shows you go in, again, you don't see the music, you recorded, that's it. You walk out and that was it, just playing that. Movies, same thing. You go in and you play all this great music. I mean, I've done 16 movies with John Williams. I did 30 movies with Jerry Goldsmith, and, so you play all this amazing music, but it's all recorded, The thing is that you never, trumpet, when we make a clam, it's loud. Now, there's an orchestra, 70 musicians, sometimes up to 100 musicians, and everybody these musicians in the studio are unbelievable. And so you make a mistake and it's heard, everybody in the orchestra has to go back and play it from the top because of your mistake. So the trumpet section, that's why you would bring all these horns, to make it easier, to make it so that we don't make mistakes. And we didn't make them in the studios, but they could re-record it, all that. But live, there's something so much more exciting playing live because you play it it goes in the mic and goes on TV and everybody hears it. So I really, I felt it made me a better player playing live. The other thing is I always loved playing cartoons. I did 3,000 cartoons. I did all Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, Pinky and the Brain, Family Guys. When you listen to Family Guy, that's me on all four trumpet parts. I got called from Walter Murphy. Says, "Hey, Rick, we got a new TV show coming over the house. So we would record the music for the theme, and it would. I did all four trumpets on Family Guy. Alan Kaplan did all four trombones. Dan Higgins played all five saxes. And there was this young kid sitting on the couch, right? Hey, the name of this show is going to be Family Guy, And this young guy comes up and says, "Wow, you guys are great." And it's Seth MacFarlane, right? And so anyway, yeah, I personally loved playing live. I'll get back to it in a minute. But I love playing cartoons. Cartoons was so much fun. I did all the Pixar movies, the first 12 of them. And cartoons music was just so much fun to play. And with the mutes, growing up, I listened to all the Looney Tunes, and I loved the trumpet players on that and learned little tricks and how you could do. So anyway, and then what was I going to talk about now?
Playing live, kind of like.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did. I did a bunch of live shows. I did the Joan Rivers show and subbed on Tonight Show a lot. And there was a lot of good shows. But then we get this call, Harold Wheeler, who, God bless him, he just passed away. We just had a funeral for him last week, as a matter of fact. But contractor called Bill Hughes and he says, "Hey, Harold's got this new TV show. It's 2005. And it says it's called Dancing with the Stars." So, okay, cool. It's going to be great. And he put together a great band, 20 musicians, 4 singers, right? And so we go to do the first rehearsal and Harold wrote the music. I'll tell you, that whole production, from the dancers to the people working on it, was like a big family, And that was such a fun show. It was an absolute great show. You played everything live. There's no pre-record. What you played, that's what came out on the screen. I had Warren Looning. My original third trumpet player was Oscar Bashir, great trumpet player.
Yeah.
And then when Oscar decided he didn't want to do it, got this other guy, Chris Gray, great young black trumpet player who played with Ray Charles and did a lot of stuff. Anyway, there was always great musicians, and it was a fun gig, I have to admit. And, at the beginning of the show, when they would walk down the stairs, and the star and the dancer, their dancer, they walked down the stairs, and the last shot always showed trumpet player going bup ba da bup bup. Well, that was me, right? So I realized that 20 million people every week on Monday and Tuesday would see that show, and so that was cool. I mean, it was just fun. It was a great show, and I always took my camera. I always had my camera with me, a real good camera. On all the Oscars, when you're in the pit, you're right here in the pit, and then right up there is where they accept the Oscars, right? Now, in the Oscars, we don't know who's winning. They never tell you at the time. So there's 3 pages. There's five people in each category. So the first page, A, B, C, D, and E. This was Tom Hanks on the first in A and blah, 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 blah. And so we would, in your mind, you kind of think, okay, who's going to win this Oscar, And so you try to narrow it down to maybe 2 first choices, because when they say, and the winner is, you have 4 seconds to find the music and the conductor gives the downbeat. So we would, we'd try to psych out, who we thought would win. So we played. And the winner is Tom Hanks. We played it. I put my horn down, pick up my camera, go like this, take some pictures of whoever's winning it. So I have pictures from 30 years of Oscars that no one's ever seen. Someday I'm going to do a book. Dancer with the Stars, I always had my camera.
Yeah.
I have pictures from all that. And so anyway, one day I'm going to do a book. I'm going to title it "The Best Seat in the House."
Yeah.
And it'll be of all the photos. I always had people sign it, autographed, So anyway, live playing, there was just, it makes you do not, I mean, everything that you've learned in your whole career has to come down to that one moment when you're saying, okay, I'm ready. I could play this. I hear it. I'm this and that. And I just think it makes you a better player playing live. As far as practicing, once I got really, really busy, I didn't practice that much because I didn't have time to practice. But if I have like a day or two off, there was a great lady trumpet player in town. Her name was Glenda Smith. She used to be a Ray Crisera student. And I'd call her up. I says, Glenda, you got to beat me up. And I would go over her house and we would play 2 hours nonstop of duets.
Oh, man.
The next day, man, I was ready for anything.
Yeah.
So there's, I always loved playing with other musicians, playing duets and this. Practicing, yes, you have to practice. You have to hone your craft. You have to do it. But where you really got to get that brain going is when you work on jobs. Why did I clam that note? Not enough that it's going to ruin your day, but enough to say, okay, why did I clam it? Was my brain not into this? Did I not hear the note ahead of time? Did I not? So I think that every time you pick up your horn, I always tried to not make mistakes. And if I did, I'd analyze it. Why did I climb that note? Why did I do this? So you have to be your own worst enemy as far as being hard on yourself, but not enough that it's going to ruin the job for you or ruin the fact that you love playing. No, I always loved playing. I didn't care what it was. And again, it goes back to versatility, be able to play any style of music.
Yeah.
You have to play it perfect, but you have to be able to learn the styles. Tony Turan, great trumpet player, he could play. He was the first trumpet player on the I Love Lucy show. And we got a call from Elmer Bernstein. He's got this new movie called The Three Amigos, right? And it's all filled with mariachi stuff. Well, Tony knew that I could play that style. And so I did it, and we both played. So when you watch that movie, that's Tony and I playing all the mariachi trumpet stuff. So, it was just something else that I would have never been there if I didn't know that style. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about some versatility stuff here in a second.
Sorry, I'm jumping around, but I'm just.
No, you're good.
This is cool. I love this. This is cool.
Yeah. I love hearing all this stuff. It's like, in another life, I would have loved to move to LA and do all this stuff. My path is taking me other places, which I also love, and I'm very happy with.
Well, like I said, right now in Nashville, they're doing a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
So all the trumpet players, I would suggest you go out there. And they got some really great players. Steve
Patrick.
Steve Patrick is marvelous. And he's a great guy.
Yeah, I've talked with him a little bit, and
he's a great guy.
Incredible. I've heard a couple of things from him. I was like, oh my gosh, that's just incredible playing.
He's a marvelous player, and he's a really good guy.
Yeah. So with the being on live television and stuff, you're using ears and whatnot. How do you get?
You always wear headphones. In the studios, you have to wear headphones because all the tempos are clicks. So,
is that
the conductor, all he does is gives the downbeat, and then we listen to the clicks, the tempos, and that's so, I always only covered one ear so I could hear my playing bouncing off the stand and stuff, But yeah, it's you always wear clicks. On Dancing with the Stars, the drums were right there. We didn't need to hear clicks, we played, But if you do use headphones, only cover one ear so that the other ear can hear everything else and what you're playing like. That you don't cover both ears. I talk to guys who use those inner ear monitors, guys on the road with the different big names and stuff. And they said it takes so long to get used to inner ear monitors. And the thing that really would drive me nuts is that the guy on the board is the one that does the balances. You don't do it yourself. You can't turn a knob to say, oh, I need a little more of this. No, you have to rely on somebody else. And I don't like doing that.
Yeah. Yep. I understand. I've been there too before. And it's just like, sometimes I'm just like, I'm going to take one out. I can't hear what's going on.
Yeah. And it's just better. It's better to take one out because then you hear the ambience of everything. You could blend with everybody.
Yeah. Agreed. 100%. So then Let's talk, a little bit more about versatility. I've
Yeah,
talked with, everybody, and they've all said like you kind of need to be able to do everything. You can have your specialty, like
right,
people might know you for this thing, but
right.
be able to do everything. So, would love to hear, more of your thoughts on that. And also, it seems like sometimes there's the jazz commercial lead players and then the classical players, and they
Right.
do their things. But I'm kind of a fan of like you trying to do all of it. Would I think and maybe this is just from what I've seen, and maybe this isn't always the case, but it seems like a lot of times classical players don't want to move to these other styles because it's not their thing, it's not their favorite thing to do, or they don't have experience. But
That's well,
jazz is
yeah. I
so
mean,
limited.
that's actually absolutely right. Again, the classical trumpet players, the guys, the first trumpets, and that play in these major symphonies,
Yeah,
they're all brilliant. There was in the LA Phil, Tommy Stevens was the principal trumpet player for years, and he would get studio calls, to sit in a section, and he hated it. And I said, Tom, why do you hate it so much? He says, Rick. He says, this is ridiculous. You guys show up, you don't know what you're going to play, you have no idea. I, he says, yeah, that's the fun part about it. I says, no, it's not fun. He says, for me, I know what I have. They had the schedule for the whole year. I know for the whole year what I'm going to have to play, and I've played them a million times, I'm sure. I said, Tommy, that would drive me nuts. If I knew I had to play 7 months from now, Petrushka, I'd start worrying about it now.
yeah,
And so it's that different mindset is the music that they play. They've been playing it all their years, all their lives, except if it's new stuff, right? If it's new
yeah,
stuff, then they got to step up and play. But these guys are great players. They get great sounds.
absolutely.
And again, not as versatile, let's say, but there are some guys out there, man, that are just great players. But yeah, I think that if I hate to just be all right, so I'm on YouTube, I watch a lot, and I see these guys playing, trying to squeak out these high notes. And
Yeah.
this is the God's honest truth. If you came right now and looked at my garage, because my wife won't let me hang it in the house, I have 65 gold and platinum records that I have played on, right? And
Yeah.
so they're out there, and it's just, you've heard of Conrad Gazzo, I'm sure. There's
Yeah.
some lot of great trumpet players. Gazzo played all of Sinatra stuff. Gazzo never played above a high G. John
Yeah.
Odino, who you heard on The Tonight Show for 30 years, first trumpet player on The Tonight Show, never played above a high G. And Gazzo, if they wanted a higher note, he said, call Bud Brisboy. He does
Yeah.
that all the time, right? Call
Yeah.
whoever. I've only seen a written double high C one time on the music, and that was on the Oscars, and that was Bill Conti trying to bust my balls. It was, and so he wrote a double high C. And I looked at it, and Bill looked down and was smiling, and we were going to pre-record it. And I said, "Okay, Bill, I'll do it one time." And I got lucky and hit it. But I don't. The money notes on for any lead trumpet player is, I think, obviously high C, the D, E flat, E, F, and a G. Now, those 5 notes, if you get those and have those 20 hours a day, any day of the week, and with a big sound and consistent, you're going to make a hell of a lot more money doing that than you are squeaking out a double C.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
that's where the ego that's where the ego thing comes in. Yeah, I mean, I've worked with guys who can do that, and I one of the funniest things, we had a great trumpet player here, Joe Davis, brilliant. He says, Rick, when I hear guys squeaking out those high notes, it reminds me of when you blow up a balloon and then you go double C, double C B. I'm sorry, I didn't on all those records. There's G's, there's an A, maybe, but everything else is sound oriented. You can't get a huge sound on a double high C.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So I just think, it's fun to play up there. Oh yeah, it's fun to challenge the other guys. But again, that's an ego thing. That's not a trumpet playing. That's not making trumpets. If you could do that, there's always going to be guys out there can do it,
Yeah.
but you have to be able to play in the section. Follow the first trumpet player. If you're not the first trumpet player, you follow him and play and do that. So yes, it is. It's fun squeaking out the high notes and doing all that. And yeah, it's exciting. It's fun, but you're not going to make $100,000 a year.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It's great.
I mean, I love Maynard. I love Maynard. I do.
Oh yeah.
And it was exciting, but I didn't know. Okay. Anyway.
Yes, no, I understand. Yeah, I have a couple more questions and then I
Yeah.
can let you go. But
I'm cool.
yeah, let's see. So yeah, let's see. Where do we want to go? Two main topics. We've covered so much. It's so great. So many great stories. You have to tell I heard you tell the story of, kind of speaking of versatility and being prepared, the story of you bringing a solo tone mute to the up recording session.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And whatnot. Can you recount that story?
Yeah.
For the
We
listeners.
were doing, Michael Giacchino did like I said, Randy Newman did all the Toy Stories. He just did Toy Story 5. I did Toy Stories 1 through 4 with him. But Michael Giacchino wrote that music for Up. And so in the music, and I can't play jazz. I can play good lead trumpet jazz, which is just playing high notes and a lot of bullshit, I could do that, but I don't consider that jazz. I can't play jazz. I wish I could. I am totally impressed with when I sit next to a jazz player to see what they can create and what they give. And so I always wanted to put some of my personality into the music when I played it. A lot of times you can't because it's a more legit style. You play what they wrote and do that, that's fine. But if I was playing first and it was a solo and I felt that there was something that I could maybe add to the movie. Mm-hmm. So I was playing, we got called to do Up, right? And the original thing, all those trumpet solos that I have in there, all was written with a straight mute. Or a straight mute. And I just felt the straight mute was not warm enough, not for what we were playing. And you could, when you do a motion picture, you see the screen, they show the scene behind you on a screen, right? Mm-hmm. So you could see what you're playing to. So anyway, so I have this old 1938 solotone mute that Manny Klein, the great Manny Klein, gave me. And so it's just a beautiful, warm sound, right? Nice sound, interesting sound. And so we played the one of these cues that has this long trumpet solo in it, and with the straight mute, and we stopped it. And then so when we finished it, I raised my hand to the conductor, Tim Simonak. I says, Tim or Michael, do you mind if we do one more? And the orchestra goes, oh God, here Rick's going again. Yeah. So anyway, I put the solo tone mute in, and we played one more. And I played the solo with the solo tone mute. Red light goes on, red light goes out. And then I see the director, Pete Docter, and Michael Giacchino come out of the booth, and they walked through the cello section, everybody, and they came in on either side, gave me a kiss on the cheeks and said, that's the sound we wanted. So again, I tried to do that on a lot of times. Sometimes I got shut down, sometimes not, but like most of the time, the composers, they're brilliant. They know what they want. I mean, there's certain, I would never suggest to John Williams anything, some of these other guys who they're welcome what we do, what we can add to make their music that they created to maybe sound a little bit better.
Yeah, I love it. That's so cool. It's always being prepared and always.
Yeah. And the other thing is Michael Giacchino wrote the music for The Incredibles.
Yeah.
And I got to say, when that came out, I mean, when I listen to it now, I think it was amazing. It was myself on first, Wayne Bergeron, Paul Salvo, and oh my God, the third trumpet player just went out of my head. But anyway, that was amazing music. And so when the DVD of Incredibles came out, on the DVD, they had a thing, one of the tracks go to music, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
click on that and it showed us playing the music, right? And so
Yeah.
I saw the guy with the camera coming out. He stood right in front of me, literally, you know. And so he says, "And what's your name? Rick Baptist?" As you could tell, I hate talking. So yeah, so I
I think
immediately
I've
said,
seen
"Yeah,
this
I'm the
actually.
person." From the player. But from just that one movie alone, I have heard from around the world, from young trumpet players and trumpet players who said, "Oh, Mr. Baptist, Incredibles, the music, the music in that it made me want to be a trumpet player." And I thought that was so cool, you know.
That is, yeah, that is. I
And
remember
I,
seeing that actually. I remember that exact thing. It was like Rick Baptist. I'm like, who's that? That's so.
And they put
That,
my name on it. That was cool too. Rick Baptist, first trumpet. I thought that was cool. But yeah,
yeah.
so that's the other thing that, like I said, I played on 1,300 movies. I think I've had my on the crawl at the end of the movie. I think I had my name on maybe 50. And believe me or not, that's a lot, right? And
Yeah.
so I know we were going to talk about the vice president thing, but let me now while I'm here, let me just talk about this. Is that growing and listening, I'm a fan of all music records. At least on the records, they usually say the musician's name on records.
Yeah.
But on TV, very rarely. Dance with the Stars, every our name was on every show. Most live shows they put the guys' names on it. But on movies, you never knew who were playing the trumpets or who the solos that they were featured. I mean, look at Dancing with the Wolves. Malcolm McNabb played all those trumpet solos. Nobody knew it because his name was not on the crawl. So
Yeah.
when I was asked to become vice president of the union, that was one thing I wanted to do because I used to go to these meetings with the producers and the directors when you're talking about redoing their the contracts, right, for the movies. And sometimes you would ask, well, why are the musician's name not on the crawl? Well, music is the last thing that goes on the movie before it comes out, and we already have that crawl already done with all the names on it, and so it's your last thing. We don't have time to do it. So that always made me mad. The thing that really made me even more was there was one name on the crawl that I constantly, because I would always wait to the end of the movie and wait to see the credits. And they would say the conductor, the composer, once in a while a copyist, main copyist, but very rarely musicians. And so there was a name always on these movies on the crawl. It was the Honey Wagon Driver. Now, do you know what the Honey Wagon Driver was?
Mm-mm, no.
Honey Wagon Driver is the guy that drives the porta potty to the job.
Oh,
Now, granted, that's important.
yeah.
Granted, that's important. But is that more important than music? He got
Oh,
his name on every movie. That drove me nuts. So I became vice president. And in 2020, they were doing a new contract for the movies, and so I was involved with it, and so I decided that I was going to tell this story to the 50 or 75 producers, directors, and all the people that we're doing this negotiation with. And this is the story I told them. And I set it up by saying, I just want to put this out because they used to say, we're the last things on and it's already put. Now they hit a button, you get 100 names on the thing, it's no big deal. So
yeah.
I said, I'd like to tell you this story of why I think musicians deserve to have their names on the crawl. And the story is the movie Up. So Pete Docter, the director. Now with Pixar, on all the movies, they always had cameras up in the rafters filming us and recording us. I mean, with a microphone right in front of the conductor. They had this like big foam rubber head. And what it was a 360-degree microphone. So that, and they piped it back to all the people who animated on the movie up at Pixar, right? Of us playing the music. So
Yeah.
Pete Docter came out. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a Warner Brothers 75 musician.
He said, ladies and gentlemen, this is our new movie Up. We're really thrilled with it. He says, but I want to do an experiment with you. I want you all, and like I said, the screen is behind us and we could see what we're playing to, but we never hear the dialogue. And so anyway, he says, I want you on this scene. It's a 3.5 minute scene. It's the scene about the old man reminiscing about his wife. And it's really a touching scene, right? So we turned around and we looked at the screen and, we had, and they ran the scene with the dialogue. No, they just ran the scene, right? And so we said, oh, that's lovely. And then we recorded the music to that scene. And then he came out after lunch and says, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to see what your music did to my movie. So we put our headphones on. They put the dialogue in there along with our music, and 75 grown men and women crying. That's how important music is. And I'm very proud to say that from that speech, and I heard it from quite a few of the producers and stuff, that we got now, when you go see a movie, like if you go see Toy Stories or the new John Williams movie, every musician's name on the crawl. And I feel real proud of that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's hard fought recognition, especially for how long the movie industry's been around, and until now,
Yeah.
it's like, man, yeah, you would think that.
Yeah, you would think. But, it's just a matter of there are, you see, look at that screen. My God, there's, all the people that work on this. Granted, okay, that's fine, but the musicians deserve credits.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can you tell us a little bit more about why you got asked to be a part of the union? Why you said yes?
Yeah. So I did 17 seasons on Dancing with the Stars, and on the 17th season, ABC said, we're not getting enough of the younger generation watching Dancing with the Stars, so we're going to change. So they got rid of the big band, and they went to records and a small, as we lovingly call it, a wedding band. Right? It was 9 musicians. And they were all great players. I was so happy for those guys, but they fired us, so I realized, man, this is, because I loved it, it was 2 days a week. It was amazing. We did it. And I was still working a lot in the studio. And so John Acosta, the president at that time of the union, says, Rick, he says, would you even think about running for the vice presidency? And so I thought, well, I don't have to Dance with the Stars. There's still other stuff. So I went home and talked it over with my wife, and I just decided that, yeah, maybe I could do something good for the music, for the musicians. So I said yes. They put my name on the ballot, and I was elected as vice president. And I did that for 4 terms. And the only problem with that, which I didn't know until 2015, when I got called to do the Oscars, John says, Rick, you're not going to be able to play the Oscars. I says, what? He says, yeah, title officers are not allowed to work outside of the building. And so it was a bummer, and I was surprised. So anyway, every day I would bring my trumpet and in my office, and it was getting close to 5 o'clock. I'd get it out, play whatever, for the people. We'll see you guys tomorrow. So I did that every day. And then finally, after about 6 months, I realized I had not touched my horn at all. And so I picked it up a couple of times, and the chops I didn't feel. So that's when I made the decision, I've done everything I ever dreamt of doing as a trumpet player, as a musician. I'm doing now other stuff that I'm helping musicians, such as we have 7 amazing rehearsal rooms in the building that we had built with great acoustics. I mean, it comes with drums, and we have big rehearsal bands, because that's where a lot of the young guys can be heard. You go to the union, you listen to a rehearsal band. Afterwards, you go up to the leader and you say, wow, I'm a trumpet player and I really enjoy it. If you ever need a sub, here's my card. That's the other thing I tell all the young people. Always have a business card. Yeah. Because number one, you never know who's going to be in the audience to hear you play. And I tell this story that I was playing with this band is at the Beverly Hilton Hotel playing a dinner show or whatever. And I stood up and played a couple solos, one on Tenderly, whatever, Cherry Pink, And at the end of the gig, an older gentleman came up to me. He says, "May I ask your name?" I said, "Oh, yes, sir. My name's Rick Baptist." He says, "I really love your playing and your sound." I says, "Oh, thank you so much, sir. Do you have a card?" I says, and yes, I had a card with my name on it, an instrument, and my phone number. I gave it to him. I said, "Oh, by the way, sir, what's your name?" He says, "My name's David Rose." Now, David Rose did the music for Little House on the Prairie. From that, he says, "I'm going to give this card to my contractor. He's going to call you." And that's how I started working with David Rose. And so, yeah, it's you never know who's in the audience. If I didn't have that card, write your name on a napkin. Where do you think that's going to go as soon as the guy leaves the room? In the garbage can. So please get a business card. You could go to Kinko's, you could get 500 of them for $10 or whatever, but just you have your name on it, what instrument you play, how they can get a hold of you. That is so important.
Yeah.
The other thing is never be late for a job. Ever. Because in the studios, the contractor hired the 60 musicians or so, and that's all he needs is puts the call out and everybody shows up. If there's one person that didn't show up, they cannot start recording music. That's so. So they'll give it maybe one time where you can be late. The second time, bye, we never see you again. And that's happened to many musicians. So you always be early. What that shows to the people who hire you, wow, this guy's here early. This guy cares about the job and all that. Please never be late for a job. I don't care if it's at church, if it's at a whatever, do not. That's one of the most important things. Second thing, I always say, check your ego at the door and just be likable and enjoy the job.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So that was my vice president stuff. I loved it. It was great. I'm glad I don't do it anymore. But yeah, I guess I could say I'm retired, but I really love going out and speaking at the colleges. I do it all over in California and elsewhere. I went to Arizona, I guess it was last year or whatever, and just meeting other players and I tell them what I say is I lie about my career and then I talk about the business, And so it's just so much fun meeting these younger musicians and players, and it's an amazing life. It truly is. I get a thrill when I turn on TV. Oh, I remember that movie, and oh yeah, Malcolm does, or I mean, there's something that is so special.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I told you I joined the Musicians Union when I was 12 years old, right?
Yeah.
Smartest thing I did. Now, when you do a job in a studio or whatever, if it's a union job, you get paid union scale. Union established the scale for that movie. If it's a movie, I think right now, if you got called to do one session, which is about 3 hours, right? I think that pays about $350, all right? So, if you do a double session, that $350 turns into $700 to play on a day, right? But if you're playing another instrument besides your trumpet, that's another 50% on top of that scale that the union has built it in. Not bad, right? If you are hired as the first trumpet or a principal player, it's double scale. So, that's the cool thing. Now, the other thing that the Musicians Union has provided from 1963 on is if you work on a union job, when it comes time for you to retire, you will get some retirement money. So all my years of playing, so now I'm getting a retirement pay every month, which is very good. But on top of that, like I said, I did the 1,300 movies. There is when they show the movie on an airplane, when they show it on TV, when they show it in any other venue, we get money for that. They have worked out. It's called the Musicians Secondary Market Fund.
Yeah.
Every July 1st, every musician who has worked on a TV show or a motion picture gets this check in the mail. And we always called it the Christmas in July.
Yeah.
So that check, a lot of the musicians, I mean, it's a check 6 figures, and it comes every year. I mean, I did ET in 1982. I still get paid. So yeah, there's so many extra benefits that the union does. I'm not saying that everybody out there needs to go and join the union, but if you got called to do a union job, which you probably would, at that point, yes, it is absolutely worth joining the musician union because they will protect you. If you do a job, you don't get paid, you tell the union, hey, I did this union job with so and so on here, they'll make sure you get your money. So it's a good thing. It
Yeah.
absolutely is a good thing.
Okay. So you would maybe recommend joining when a union job comes up, but maybe not beforehand.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Now anybody can go, and the rehearsal bands and listen to the rehearsal bands. You don't have to belong to the union to go down to the union and listen to the rehearsal bands.
Yeah.
You don't have to. So you go, you always make sure you got your horn in the car in case someone doesn't show up.
Yeah. It's true.
So it's just little things like that, I think, is very important. And yeah, so it's there's a lot of things, there's a lot of opportunities you got to take when an opportunity comes. You got to try your best and play your best. You don't ever, I've worked with a lot of people who said, I blew it. I didn't, I should have, I didn't sleep good the night before. I didn't warm up good. They always have excuses for why they didn't get a job.
Mm,
And you don't want to have excuses. You want to be at the top of your game whenever you get in. And granted, if you've ever gone for an audition for a chair in an orchestra or whatever, there's going to be 50 other guys who are trying to get that job. So
Yeah.
you have to go in, you have to be prepared, know whatever music they're going to ask you to play, listen to records of the top players playing that piece of music. You try to imitate that. I never believed in trying to copy other players unless you're a jazz guy and you could copy a little bit whatever. But, that's why I said I loved Snooky Young. I loved the way he played first trumpet, all the first trumpeters. So you take a little bit, oh, I like the way you did that. You file it in the back of your head. Okay, I'm going to try that next time. You could always learn at any age. You could always learn from anybody, young or old, so it's a lifelong learning situation. And it will always benefit you in certain ways you won't even know until it happens.
Yeah. 100%. Man, I love it. This has been so fun. Maybe
I love it too.
one more last question, and then we can wrap it up. But I always like to kind of end the interviews. Thank you again for taking.
Kenny, thank you for the offer.
Yeah, it's been I've loved it. And as the last question, I always like to ask everybody: is there anything you know now that you wish you knew when you were younger and starting out?
Good question. Not a good answer. The answer I would give is looking back when I started, all the things that I've done throughout my career, I think number one would be the memories and the just loving what you're doing. I mean, there's a lot of guys who don't love what they're doing or when they don't, and that comes out in your playing. You got to love what you're doing. You have to, in order to get better, you have to be hard on yourself sometimes. Like I said, if I went even on a rehearsal, if I went in and stepped on my dick, as they say, and I knew I screwed up, but the drag was everybody else know that. And I made that would make me mad. And I would say, I'm never gonna do that again. And my wife used to say, there's always going to be people who are jealous of your career. Well, why did he get that? I should have done that. And there's always going to be like that people in your life. And so what I would do, like if I knew I was going to go on a job and one of the players, I've heard he said some crap about me or whatever, or this and that. I told my wife, I'm going to work today and I am not going to make a mistake at all. I'm not going to make a mistake. Because if I don't make a mistake, it's going to ruin the other guy's day. Because they want me to step on it so that they can tell, oh, I worked with Rick today. He stepped on everything, clammed But if you go in and you play perfect and you play to the best of your ability, it ruins their day.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, in LA, they used to say if you made a clam at Warner Brothers in the morning and MGM in the evening, everybody knew it. So,
Yeah.
It's tough. It is. It's tough. Big. The competition is fierce. But
Yeah.
it's also when certain good things happen, you have to relish in that. And hopefully you have a partner that you could go home and say, man, I played my ass off today. I am so proud of myself. You can't say that to another player, but you could say that to your significant other.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that to me is just, yeah. I mean, we're blessed to be able to what we do. And when I received that ITG award and I look at the names of the trumpet players that received that award prior. In fact, I got an amazing phone call last week from Doc Severinsen. And Doc says, Rick, congratulations, man. I'm proud of you. You're on the list with me now.
Yeah.
And to me, that just made my day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's you don't and I have heard actors say, no, you don't do a part just so you think, oh, I'm gonna get an Oscar or whatever. No, you just do it because that's what you love doing. You don't expect to get an award that I received, and it just knocks me out and that's the last time I saw Tony Cat, like you were talking about Tony. I saw him there, and he sounded fantastic. Oh my God, he's always plays great.
Yeah.
We did I did the Tony's one year with him. The conductor Don Pipton asked me to go back and play on that, and that's the first time I met Harold Wheeler, the orchestrator, who I ended up working out here on Dance with a Star. So you never know who's going to be in the booth. You never know who's this. But if you play the best you can all the time, be the nicest you can, people are going to talk. And when
Yeah.
people talk, it'll be good.
Yeah. 100%. Thank you, Rick. This has been so much fun.
Jaden, thank you so much. I mean, we could probably do this again.
Part two.
Part two, exactly, because there's so many other things. But I think the main thing is just that it's a blessing. It's a thrill. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. Music is the greatest, and the opportunities are still there. There's going to be people who are saying, "Oh, it's slow and it's this and that." Maybe that's true, but it always goes like this, ebbs and flows, and there's always going to be some place where you can play your horn. Could be in a restaurant with a piano player. You're going to just play, old songs, classic songs, and people come by. I've seen guys just the other night. There was a great saxophone player who, had his case open playing. Unbelievable saxophone player, man. I stopped and talked with him and told him a few things, such as he only plays saxophone. I says, you don't play clarinet? No, go get a clarinet. Learn how to play. Be versatile. Anyway, This guy sounded great. There's always opportunities to play. You create them yourself, but you never know who's going to be in the audience to hear you play.
Yeah.
So you play the best you can all the time.
I love it. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'd love to come out at some point and get a lesson from you. Where in California are you at?
I'm in Valencia, which is Santa Clarita. Yeah, absolutely. Come out. We'll get together and take you around. And
yeah, man, it'd just be fun to see. Okay, yeah, you're up right. Oh yeah, I think you said that you're next to Six Flags over there.
Yeah, right. Magic Mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I'd love to sometime because
Absolutely, it would be great. I would love to do that. Also, to on the podcast, I have no problem with doing this. But if anybody has any questions for me, I could give you
yeah.
my I'll give you my email,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it's Nocoda. Nocoda and the number one at AOL.com. Yes, I still have AOL.com. And you know the joke, no coda joke, right? Where I got that from.
No, actually, tell me.
Trumpet player dies and he goes to hell, and the devil greets him as he comes down there. He's got his horn, and the devil opens up this door, and it's a huge ballroom, millions of people dancing. And he looks up on the stage. They've got the greatest musicians ever. Buddy Rich on drums, Count Basie, the trumpets are Gabriel, Louis Armstrong, all the greatest players. And so the devil says, that's what you're going to do. And the band's playing, roaring, and people are dancing. And he goes up there and pops Louis Armstrong and says, hey, new guy, all right, come sit over here. And they're playing, and he said, okay, here we are here, boom, and play. They go to the top of the chart, and they do it, play it again, right? And he says, and Louis says, hey, you want to play a solo? Go play the solo letter A, or letter G. And he goes, and he plays a solo, and people, yeah, that's great. All the guys are in. They go to the bottom church, they're back to the top. And so after about a few 4, 5, 6, 7 hours playing this, he says to Pops, hey, when do we take the coda? And Pop says, there's no coda in hell, which means you play the same piece of music over and over and over. And as you know, a musician, that would be hell.
Yeah.
So that's my car license plate, no coda, right? So that's the no coda joke. There's no coda in hell.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
that's my email. Okay. And I have no problem giving you my phone number, which is 818-414. Wait a minute. 818-414. Come on, Rick. I've talked too much today. You know my phone.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. You can put it out there. But awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for taking so much time to just hang and chat and love it.
818-414-8931. Okay, good.
Got it. Perfect.
It's a bitch
Great.
getting.
Yeah. It's not I believe it. So
Well, Jaden, thank
awesome.
you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've answered a few questions for a lot of people, and I hope that your book, and you're gonna send me a copy, aren't you?
Of course, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So I'm hoping to wrap it up this year. So
There's a new
soon.
book out. There's a new book out that on Conrad Gazzo. Bob Strickland, a gentleman up in Canada, has put this book out about Gaz, and he actually contacted me about a year and a half ago, and I did the foreword on the book. And it's an amazing book. I highly recommend it. Gaz died at 46 years old. I mean, he was the greatest, one of the greatest. There's so many great stories there. So I highly recommend looking up Robert Strickland, the Gazzo book.
The Cosmo. Okay, I'm looking it up right now. I'm gonna because I would love to. I love that. So
it's amazing. It's an amazing book. He spoke to a lot of the musicians who worked with Gaz. Gaz, he had a problem with drinking, and that was a big time problem. But what a player.
yeah, I love it. Okay. Well,
All right, brother.
we'll let you get back to your day and whatnot. So, but thank you again, and we'll be in touch.
All right, Jaden, you take care.
Thanks
And
so
thank
much,
you
Rick.
for everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.